everybody, my name is Emily Main, and today we're going to be talking about one of the things that I've been working on this semester, which is my personal note-taking strategies. This is particularly in regards to literary analysis, literary criticism, and the use of expository text. So we're going to be talking about a few different methods of note-taking. We're going to be talking a little bit about the classic Cornell method, the use of visual aids, how we can use symbols and abbreviations to shorthand our writing, and highlighting, underlining, and obviously sticky notes and post-its, things like that. So some of the classics. So first we're going to start out by saying that I know that selecting a specific type of note-taking strategy for yourself can be a little bit difficult, especially when you're new to note-taking, or if it's something that you're not as used to doing. Particularly in an online setting. So what I've been trying to tell myself is don't stress over it and make sure that you don't get overwhelmed and you just pick whichever one works best for you. So we're giving a couple of different options of different methods you can use. We'll start out by talking a little bit about the classic Cornell method. Most people have seen this pretty much since middle school, if they have been in a learning environment. Pretty much all of the main ideas are on the left-hand column, and then followed by supporting details and notes on the right-hand side, followed by a summary section somewhere at the bottom of the page or on a separate sheet. So this is a really basic method, especially for people that are just starting out in note-taking strategies. It's a really good idea to use during a classic lecture setting. It's also used for when you're taking notes just for yourself. So I would say it's the best use for this. It's probably either right in a lecture or if you're trying to analyze an expository or nonfiction text. It's really good for sort of boiling down larger ideas and putting them all sort of on one page for usable data. It's a really simple method, especially for when you're teaching younger students how to do it, or anything that they're new to this, the note-taking strategies. Some challenges that you find with the Cornell method is that it's not always as useful when you are trying to analyze a fiction or creative writing text. It's a little bit difficult for anyone who's not an analytical learner. So if it's very structured, it has a lot of rules that you have to follow, and it's not really open for changing the structure, the format. There's not a lot of digital versions available either, unless you design one yourself, either using a Google Doc or using Microsoft Word or something like that. So unless you design one yourself, the Cornell method is pretty much a paper-based note-taking method. Not that that's a bad thing, but it's just something that's not as applicable to the digital environment. So next we are going to be talking about symbols and abbreviations, which is a method of shorthand note-taking. It's pretty standard. If you look at all of the symbols on the right-hand side, there's a couple of standard ones that people use just to take, it's a couple of the classics that take the place of regular words, such as an ampersand for the word and, or a hashtag for a number. And it also allows you to invent symbols on your own, or pictures that represent ideas or phrases. So such an example would be like drawing a picture of a clock in the margin of a story when the author makes a reference to time passing, or choosing a symbol to represent an overarching theme. It can also help you make a connection within a text, like using, I don't know, a hammer to represent oppression, or like a sailboat to represent a character's emotional journey. So it allows for a little bit faster note-taking, either when reading or in a lecture setting, and it also allows for a little bit more personal creativity on your own, so you can apply it to your own uses. Some of the benefits of using symbols and abbreviations is that it's really fast and it helps with flow. You don't have to stop and go either in a lecture or in a story. Margin notes, they're pretty easy and straightforward if you're writing directly into a text. And it also lets you have your own spin on it. Some challenges that you will face is that you can't really use symbols and abbreviations in a group setting, especially when you are either lending notes to another classmate or trying to work with a group. It's a little bit hard if you forget what your symbols represent. If you're like, why did I draw a picture of a star, and you didn't put a note in to explain what it was. If you're going back to notes, especially either at the beginning of the semester or something that you read in the past. So it's not very structured in that way. There's also not a lot of application to the digital unless you're just using different symbols that are already formed in the keyboard. So it's not very easy, especially when you're trying to do something right within a text. So we're also going to be talking about highlighting and underlining, which is pretty much something that people have used pretty much since you've used texts, probably since middle school. It brings attention to important phrases or quotes. It allows you to also color code if you want to. And it's used to just basically to remind you to go back into a text and remind you that a line of text or a quotation is important. So the best use is to bring attention. It's really fast. You can highlight pretty much as you go along. You don't have to stop and go back to anything. And it's easy to color code. So you can use blue to represent setting. You can use yellow for direct dialogue quotations, and I don't know, pink for if you wanted to have anything for character traits. So there's a lot of different ways that you can adapt it. And it's best used when in conjunction with annotations or margin notes. So you can remind yourself as to why you highlighted a certain section and what it is, why it's important. A really great part of highlighting and underlining especially is there are a lot of online applications and extensions that work with highlighting and underlining. The Kindle app has a really great underlining tool that allows you to make annotations as you go along, as well as some Chrome extensions that we'll talk about. It is easy to get carried away with highlighting, so sometimes you'll go back to a page and 80% of it is all yellow highlighter, and you're not really sure why. So it's important that you don't forget to just use it for the very important lines of text. And it's also easy if you don't make annotations as you go along, it's possible to forget why you highlighted. So it can be used in a good or bad way, so it's important to keep that in mind. Some really great digital applications that I have found is Bnote, which is a Google Chrome extension, and that is used for taking notes directly on a web page. So it allows you to highlight and annotate in articles or in web pages that you're looking at. Also the highlighter pen, which is a web application that also allows you to do it. The only problem with highlighter pen is that it doesn't always save your highlights if you reload the page. So if you go back to something later, it doesn't always save your notes or your sections that you highlighted. So that's something to keep in mind. Next, we're going to be talking about the use of sticky notes or Post-its. This is a really easy method for using direct notes directly into the text. So if you want to just put a note in on a certain paragraph or a page, it allows yourself to remind you of short reminders of different parts of the text. It also makes it sort of doubles as a bookmark, so it'll tell you exactly where in the text. You can flip right to it if you put it on the edge. It's kind of a cool tool that way. So sticky notes are really good for making notes as you go along. It doesn't really interrupt your flow as much as, say, stopping the text to go and type a note. And it also doesn't do any damage to the physical text. So if you're renting a book or if you're borrowing it from someone else or borrowing it from the library, it doesn't do any physical damage. You're not writing directly into the text, so you don't have to do any damage to it. So that's always a benefit. Some challenges to using actual sticky notes is that it's not very green conscious because it is actually wasting paper. It's you can recycle them obviously, but it doesn't really save any paper or trees. And it can be problematic also if they actually fall out of the book. So if they don't stick very well, or if you drop anything and they come out, you're not exactly sure where they go back. And if you don't write page numbers directly on them, it can get confusing to try and put them back. So yeah, a really good application for sticky notes is that they have a lot of different uses online. There's tons of different sticky note applications, but it also, you have to be careful of which one you use because not all of the digital versions have a save feature, so not all of them can save your notes. So another one that I found that was good was the Sticky Notes Chrome extension. And it's a really easy way just to sort of color code your notes. You can put them directly into web pages, so when you reopen them, they'll pop back up to remind you why you made notes on things. And you can also use OneNote, which is a Microsoft application, and that one is good because you can use it both on and offline. So if you have any notes that you want to make offline, you don't have to always be on Google Chrome to do that. So that's something to think about. Finally, I want to talk about visual aids. This is a very vast topic because it talks about a lot of different types of note taking. So it's the use of mind maps and diagrams and pictures and any kind of mapping or connection tools in order to take notes. So this is just an example of a mind map that centralizes an idea and then gives details and smaller topics along with those details. So this is a very vast topic. It includes a lot of different things. Today we're going to be focusing mainly on mind mapping, which is a fairly new method of note-taking that is actually a lot easier to use in a digital environment. So it's very versatile, and it helps make connections to the text. Mind mapping is something that they're actually teaching younger and younger students and how to do. It's able to sort of organize thoughts, and it also helps to create visual connections. Some challenges that you will run into with mind mapping is that it takes some time. It does take a little bit of time to organize and to design different mind maps and things like that. And it's not as formally structured as, say, the Cornell note-taking method. So it's a little bit different, and it is following another structure. So right now I'm going to take you into a small mind map that I made in conjunction with the presentation, just to show you a couple of different tools of how to make a mind map online. This is a really great website called Coglit.com, and it's actually a really advanced mind mapping program, and they teach it in elementary school and things like that. So it's actually pretty versatile. It can be used for professional use, or you can. It's also it's free, so it's actually really it's good. You can also pay an extra amount per month in order to have some more advanced applications within Coggle, but the free version is pretty comprehensive. So you can create a concept map or an outline for a story. It also can be shared with either a class or a group to organize your ideas for collaborative projects. And it embeds links directly into the map. So it's actually kind of cool. If you look at over here, I have the Cornell method centered on the page, and then it's linked directly to the Cornell website, and that will open up directly out of the map. So it's kind of a cool strategy for if you want to organize all of your different sources on one place. So this is just my visual aids branch. It has a couple of different pictures to remind me which visual aids I want to use. A sticky notes application that opens up directly into the Chrome extension if I want to have be able to share that with other people in a group or in a class. And also another way you can sort of change this around, you can change where things are located also. So you can sort of shift around wherever you need to in order to organize your thoughts. So it's actually pretty cool that way. And you can stretch it out, or you can move it around so it's a little bit easier to use. If you hold down the cursor, you can also zoom the page, you can make it smaller, zoom out. So it's pretty good about if you want to make a mind map that's very extensive, or if you want to just make something that's full page that's pretty small. So you can always share up here, you can always share it with other people. You can download it, so you can print out a direct link, or you can print out the direct image. So it's actually a pretty versatile website. Highly recommend it if you're using something for presentations. Another way that I've found Coggle is very useful is also when you are mapping out creative writing stories. So if you are trying to map out characterization or the plot for your story or anything like that, it's a really useful tool for that I've found. So this is my favorite version of note-taking strategy that I have found that works best for me. This is a really great website in case anybody wants to use it. It is www.coggle.it. So thank you so much for your time, and good luck in your next semester.